You are now tuned in to the Addicted to Success.com podcast, where geniuses, entrepreneurs, and next-level game changers share their juicy little secrets on achieving massive success. This is the advice you wish you heard years ago. Be prepared and take note as we expose the realness and the raw of what it takes to be successful on AddictedToSuccess.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Addicted to Success podcast. Today, I'm super excited. We have the amazing Gabby Bernstein on the line. She is a New York Times bestselling author. She has launched 4 books so far, and she's working on a 5th. She is a motivational speaker, a spiritual leader, and even Oprah Winfrey calls her a next-generation thought leader. She's passionate about creating spiritual teachers throughout the world, and I'm super excited to have you here today. Gabby Bernstein, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. It's so nice. Thanks for having me.
And no problems at all. No problems. You earned it. You definitely earned it. I see you all over the net right now. You know, you got your videos out there, your books. Every time I walk into a bookstore, I see your book right there in my face. So I know you're doing all the right things.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that.
I love it. So I'm not too sure if you have a full understanding of our audience. I'll just give you a quick rundown. Basically, our audience are very much so into entrepreneurship, right? And I think a lot of them, from what I can see from the feedback and the surveys we have and also the content we put out and the comments they leave, they're interested in the idea of spirituality, right? They know that there's like a side to them that they need to really tap into that may be more fulfilling as well than just, you know, chasing the dollar. And I think that one thing that I find with a lot of entrepreneurs, this comes up quite often, is one of the biggest issues with ambitious entrepreneurs is that they face the problem of not letting go of their ego. So what would your advice be in this area of letting go of your ego and getting out of your own way?
You know, it's like I really believe that the key to success is to get out of your own way. And I have been an entrepreneur since I was 21 years old, and I'm 35 now. So yeah, almost 15 years, really crazy to date myself in that way. And really, I think that the biggest journey that I've been on as an entrepreneur is the journey of getting out of my own way. And I've come to find that the more humbled I become in the service of what I do, and the more committed I become to the service rather than what can I get, but more how can I give, the bigger my business becomes. The more it blows up, the more it takes off, and the more it's supported. And so I am a tremendous believer that the key to success is to get out of your own way, predominantly to release the false pretenses that you build up around yourself. So the stories of, you know, I'm the New York Times bestseller, I sat next to Oprah, I did this, I did that, and just instead see it as, of course, these things have occurred as a result of the great commitment and inner work that I have done, and allowing that to be reflected on the outside, rather than seeing it as something that I place upon myself for a sense of worthiness or a sense of accomplishment. You know, it's funny, these days I find that I almost forget to celebrate my accomplishments because I just continue to move ahead, and you know, in the experience of, well, this is just what I'm supposed to do, you know? Yeah. So I don't know, it's an interesting thing, a balance between honoring what you create, but also just being in the service of what it is you're supposed to bring forth.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer. So it kind of sounds like you're saying, let go of those limiting beliefs, right? And also not putting anyone on a pedestal or anything that you're doing on a pedestal, like looking at it like this is your responsibility and moving around it. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, for the past 10 years, I've been teaching a metaphysical text called A Course in Miracles. And one of the most magnificent messages from the Course is that when we're in our ego, we're making people special, or we're making ourselves special. And we put ourselves on a pedestal, or we put other people on a pedestal. And what happens when we make an idol of anyone, including ourselves, when that idol falls, everything else falls apart. And so in seeing a sense of interconnectedness and oneness, and seeing your own light in someone like Tony Robbins, and also seeing that the light that you shine brightly is a reflection of that, you know, young person that's just beginning their journey, that it's all an equal exchange then that really kind of evens the playing field. It helps you as you do embrace new connections that you may have otherwise experienced as someone, that was more special than you, but instead you can see them as a contemporary and a friend. It would have been very easy to see a lot of my teachers as special idols. But the moment that I stopped seeing them as special idols and instead saw them as great, obviously respected them for their great work and their teachings, but instead saw them as an equal, was when I could truly establish those friendships, right? So I think really to become mindful of how you may be creating specialness and creating idols in your world, or even particularly making yourself this special figure in the world, and to understand that will not be supported. And what is supported is an energy of authenticity and an energy of oneness and energy and a connectedness, where you can see that we're all in it together.
Yeah, that's right. 100%. 100%. I wanted to ask you as well, because you touched on how you studied A Course in Miracles. And it's funny because it would have been probably about 3 months back. I was hanging out with someone who we're mutual friends with, Jarek and Amanda Robbins.
Yeah, I love Jarek. He's the best.
Yeah, he's the champion. And we went to a Marianne Williamson talk, and she was reading out of A Course in Miracles. And I went back home, and Charlene, my fiance, she's into it, and she was reading some things from it, and I read a few pages, and to be honest, a lot of it went completely over my head.
Yeah.
So what would you advise people to do if they were looking at opening A Course in Miracles, the book, and getting into it? Like, where would you start?
Well, first of all, it's funny that it's not funny, but, Marianne Williamson was my first idol, right? As we were just talking about idols. I looked up to Marianne like, she was like Michael Jackson. And she was, who introduced me to the course. And as I was saying before, when I was saying earlier about how I had to create that evenness and that oneness and start to see my idols as friends, was Marianne. It's actually who I was talking about. So, in experiencing Marianne as a human, as a contemporary, as a teacher, but also as a friend, I was able to really establish the greatest learning and teachings in my relationship to her, So that was actually ironic that you brought her up after I was giving that example. And in any case, Marianne introduced me to the course. And then when I was in my early 20s, I became a student of the course. Here's the thing. You could be practicing the principles of A Course in Miracles even just as a student of Marianne Williamson, or a student of Gary Renard, or a student of Kenneth Wapnick, or any great Course in Miracles teacher. Because if someone is really just there to translate and interpret the principles for you, as am I. And then there's people like yourself and your fiance that may say, "Oh, well, let's open this book and see what's there and go deeper." And both instances are tremendous. Following the text of A Course in Miracles is miraculous because it's a program where it's a experience of unlearning and remembering. And you go through a mental reconditioning of really reprogramming your limiting, fear-based ego belief system and returning your thoughts to love, as Marianne would say. You return to love. And it's a life-changing practice. It's a lifelong practice. I've been a student for a long time, and I've done the 365 days of meditations and continue to redo them again. And right now, my husband and I are practicing the course together. So we go through these experiences where we can come to these texts, and sometimes we get the hit where, oh, I have to dive in deeper. Or sometimes, maybe in your case, you could say, I love how Marianne expresses this text, and I'm willing to just learn it through her and her books and her teachings. And like I said, if you become a devoted follower of Marianne, you in turn become a student of A Course in Miracles. So I'm not too concerned about how you follow the messages. If you were lit up by them, keep that book on your shelf. Continue to listen to teachers like Marianne. And when you are called, you will know when to pick up the book again. Yeah. It happens. Yeah. It'll fall off the shelf and land on your foot. Hopefully not too hard because it's a heavy book.
It is. Yeah. It looks like a massive Bible. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess it depends where you are in your life at the time, right? You could go back to that book and have a completely different experience with it.
Yes, 100,000%. So, and to be brutally honest with you, a lot of my experience of the course has made, I would say, like, just as much of my being a student of the course has come from the actual text. 50% of it has come from teachers like Marianne, and in particular, a teacher named Kenneth Wapnick. And Ken was one of the sort of the editor of the course, and really the one of the original team that put the text into form. And he has all these videos on YouTube, and I am a huge devotee of Ken's work, and he passed away. And the day that he died, I remember waking up that morning and I heard my inner voice, and the course would call it the voice of the Holy Spirit, the voice of your inner wisdom. And that voice said to me, go back to following Ken on YouTube. That was literally what I heard when I woke up. Go back to following Ken on YouTube. So I went upstairs and I just tuned into Ken on YouTube. And an hour later, I found out that he had passed away that morning, or I guess earlier that, earlier that day or the day before. And I took that as a sign that I was really meant to continue to learn these messages through him. So I think that there's great spiritual texts that are carried on by people in a modern way. And that is an incredible way to experience the messages. So, once again, I just don't think that it has to be, I think that picking up the text and following the text, lesson by lesson is a life changer, and I would recommend it to anybody. But I also do believe that you can find your guides in very unique ways and trust in the inspiration that you receive. So your listeners are finding tremendous guidance in you. Mine are in me. And I think it's important to just stay on path with what's inspiring you most.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's take the focus back to your books. You've launched 4 books, you've published 4 books, and you've gone New York Times bestseller. I want to get into your mind. Like, where were you when you first sat down and decided to write your first book, which is Add More Ing to Your Life? Before you wrote your first book, like, what made you think that you had enough experience and that people would read it, or not even knowing who you were at that time?
Right. It's funny that you ask about Add More Ing to Your Life, because that was the most challenging book for me to write, at first, and then it just poured out of me. But I was blocked at first. Here's the thing. I didn't want to be a writer. I wanted to be a speaker. I was a speaker for at least I'd been speaking from 2001, and I wrote Ing in 2008. Okay. So, and I'd been speaking on spiritual topics since 2005. So 3 years under my belt of being a motivational speaker. And I wanted to be a speaker. Speaking came naturally to me. Speaking extemporaneously about messages that I love is what I am here to do. I am a speaker. And I kept getting these audiences that were growing larger and larger. And these people were coming in from, towns and cities outside of New York City just to come hear me speak. And they'd leave and they'd say, I want more. I want to keep the lessons that you've taught me, and I need to continue going. And so, really, the universe told me I had to write books. I did not want to write books. I couldn't put a sentence together. I have 8th grade English. That is the last literary experience that I have. It's from 8th grade. I don't know if that I guess how old were you in 8th grade? I don't know, like 14 or 13, something like that.
13, yeah.
13, yeah, exactly. So I have English, education and literary education up to 13 years old. I couldn't put a sentence together, but I was being told I had to write this book, and I knew I had to. And so because I knew, and because I was so passionate about what I was doing, I sold the book. I got an agent. I went out and I got a publisher, and then I was like, fuck, what do I do? So here I was, and I had this publishing deal, and I actually only had a 4-month turnaround, which is really unheard of. Usually you have at least a year to write a book. I had a 4-month turnaround. They wanted to get it out for January, which is like New Year, New You. And I had a panic attack. And so I turned to my meditation practice, and I turned inward, and I was like, I need a miracle. Like, show me what to do here. And I remember literally my inner guide speaks to me in funny ways. And so my inner guide said, call Chris Carr. And Chris Carr is a contemporary of mine who writes tremendous wellness books here in the US. And she's well known all over the world, actually. So Chris was out with her first book, Crazy Sexy Cancer Tips. And in any case, I heard call Chris Carr because I had remembered Chris saying that she'd had a writing coach. And so I said, okay, I'll call Chris. So I called Chris and I was like, listen, I've got to write this book. I'm freaking out. And she's like, and so I believe that spirit works through people and you're always led to what you need through another individual. And so Chris was like, no worries, let me put you in touch with my writing coach. And so I got in this journey with this editor / writing coach who inevitably only came into my life for a very short period of time, but she was like an angel that flew in just to teach me how to create the structure of a book and also give me the confidence to own my voice as a writer. And so the reason I believe that I'm a great writer is not because I have such great grammar, I can put the most beautiful sentence together, but because I can write in my voice.
Yeah.
And so I got that first few chapters down with this editor, and then I was off to the races and finished that book in a 3-month period and had it out by January. And then have been continuously writing a book a year since. And writing for me now has just become sort of an effortless experience, just because one, I speak so much on the road, and then I have so much content that there's so much to write about, and then I've been just so comfortable writing in my voice, and I'm totally not a perfectionist at all. So I can trust that editors will clean up whatever I've done.
So this is great. This is great. I was going to ask you, when you went for the first time to the editor and they sat down with you and they looked at what you had written so far for Ing, right? What was missing? Could you give us an idea of like what was kind of missing, what needed to be added to it or taken out, or what did you have to rejig for it to work?
This will be like a life-changing thing for anyone that's new to writing books. So, the biggest thing that was missing, Joel, was that I did not have a clear outline. And so when you don't have, the key to writing a book is having a clear outline and clear direction on where you want to go. And then the more comfortable you become as a writer, the more loose that outline can be. But I would always recommend to have a very specific outline of what is it, where are you going? What's the through line of the book? What are the stories that you're going to tell to support that through line? And how is each chapter going to build upon the next to get you to the end game? And I had no outline. So if you have no outline, you're literally writing yourself in circles. Ultimately, that's what I was doing. And so she looked at the text that I'd written, and she's like, okay, she was like, oh shit, I got a lot of work to do here. But she, helped me establish an outline. And, in that book, it's such a clear outline. You could not even be looking for it and you'll find it, which is like, anecdote, identify the problem. So there's an outline of the book, and then there's an outline of every chapter. But the outline of every chapter is, anecdote, identify the problem, offer up the solution, and then here's the 3-step process to get to the solution, and then let's talk about the next chapter. That happens in every chapter of that book. And once I had that clear outline, it became this very fun, effortless process of just writing within the lines. Kind of like coloring within the lines. You can be far more creative, and it was just like this freedom that the outline feels like structure, but it actually creates freedom.
Awesome, Gabby. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. I know there's a lot of people that are listening right now that are really interested in launching their first book. And I think that they're really holding themselves back because they think it needs to be perfect, or they're very confused about self-publishing or going, trying to pitch to hundreds of publishers. So it's good that you gave that advice, because I think that clears a lot of things up for people to know what to expect if they want to step into that arena.
Joel, there's another thing I want to say that I think is really important, which is that, while I am extremely grateful for the publishing companies that have been very, very generous with me and very supportive of me, and they are my partners and they will continue to be, I got into the publishing world at a time when, they were still taking risks on a new author that, had some small audience and they were going to check out what she could do, right?
Yeah.
These days, it's much harder to get published. And then ultimately people have this sort of idea that publishing is going to be this sort of like, once they get published, then they'll get then someone's going to do all their press for them and someone's going to sell all their books for them. And that's a bunch. Do you mind that I'm cursing so much on this show? Like, I just am like, sometimes I quote Tribe Called Quest. Like, occasionally I curse to get my point across. So,
that's cool.
But I won't curse for the sake of emphasis. I will just speak loudly.
Okay.
I do not think that everyone needs to wait for a publisher to accept them. I believe in self-publishing these days, because you're going to do the exact same amount of work publishing it yourself versus getting a publisher. And I I think that you, in many cases, can even make more money self-publishing. So I'm not saying that the traditional route of working with a publisher isn't a great opportunity. My publishers at Hay House are tremendous. I love them so much, and I'm so grateful for their partnership. I just think if this is someone that's new and they're off to the races, I would really recommend considering self-publishing.
Yeah, beautiful. And that's really all about, working on your personal brand, right? Like marketing yourself and getting the skills up in that area, or at least finding someone that has the strengths in those areas to work with you, because a lot of it is marketing, isn't it?
It's all marketing.
Yeah, there you go.
Selling a book is, well, no, number one, writing a good book that's going to help people, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of good books that have been written that are never seen because someone doesn't know how to get them out into the world, right? And so this is something I teach, actually. I have a training called the Spirit Junkie Masterclass, and I teach, how to manifest media for your message and how to publish your own books and, how to really begin to create a movement within your message. And I think that it's something that in some cases for people it comes very naturally, and some people it can be very challenging. But most importantly, my feeling about getting your message out to the world is that if you are moved by your message, there's no way your message won't move others.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, people want to feel inspired, right? There's a formula behind that. That's why I feel that Addicted to Success works so well, is because people love to feel inspired. They love to feel like they can have some sort of faith or hope that there's something better, and that they also have the opportunity to grow and move and learn. And this is what you do through your books. But I want
to say one thing about that. The reason it works so well is because you're inspired by it. And so if you weren't inspired by it, because, for instance, like you sent me an email, and I often don't even open a lot of my emails right now just because I'm writing a new book. But for whatever reason, I felt like your enthusiasm about what you're doing, and it was like an immediate yes. And so I was reacting not just to your credentials, but to the feeling that I felt through an email, So I think that you have to really emphasize that when it comes to creating success is really, if you are moved by the work that you do, then success is just an afterthought.
Yeah. No, thank you, Gabby. I really appreciate that you said yes.
I know. I'm so glad
that Thank you. No, that's great. So would you say that that's like following your intuition, or is it a little bit more than that?
Well, yeah, your intuition, and your intuition picks up on vibes, right? And vibes speak louder than words. And so I think that it's our job to do whatever it takes to, on a daily basis, release the blocks to the presence of our intuitive power. And we release those blocks through prayer, through meditation, through listening to inspiring shows like this, and leaning towards a higher vibe energy in our life. And so, just last night, for instance, my husband and I have been blessed with a lot of great new things coming in our life. We've just bought our first home, and we've, been, doing all the construction, and my husband's retiring from being in private equity for 10 years to come work with me. And so there's all these gorgeous, shifts in our life. But in the midst of it, we've been very negative just in our tone, just for being like, oh, this, contractor's not getting the way we need to, or it's scary that this is happening, or whatever. And so I just said last night, I was like, this negative mumbo jumbo has got to stop right now. Number one, it is not what I preach. And number two, I could see so clearly how just even the low vibe conversation could bring us down. And so I really believe in the energy of words. I believe in the energy of feelings. I believe in the energy of intentions. And that is what creates. It's not necessarily how much we do or how hard we work that is creative. It's the creative force of energy within us that is what bestows our great gifts upon the world.
Yeah, that's great. Gabby, I love that you're so real on this call. You're so authentic bringing this up. A lot of people don't talk about that side of their life. They'll just kind of keep it business, keep it straight. You shared an example of you being a little bit kind of off track of what you preach, which is great. It's real. What would your advice be for entrepreneurs that are in a relationship? Because we have quite a lot of entrepreneurs that are, one of them may be working their ass off. The other one is maybe just kind of tagging along. Or there may be, two entrepreneurs in a relationship, and they may clash from time to time. So what would your advice be there from your experience of working with entrepreneurs in relationships, coaching them, and also from your own relationship?
Yeah. Well, it's new to me, so I'll receive advice from anybody out there as well. No, that's not true. I mean, my husband and I have been working together nights and weekends for the past 3 years, if not longer. And for the past 7 years, we've been sort of incubating this transition. But here's the key to working with others. And so I'll sort of speak to both questions. One is if you're in a couple, in a partnership working together, and then we can talk about it if you're just two entrepreneurs in the same household doing separate things, right? Yep. So if you're a couple working together, the key to success in that area is to just have very specific, clear-cut outline of what each individual's goals and objectives and strengths are, right? So, and roles in the business. So with my husband and I, there's absolutely no question who does what, okay? Like my husband has brilliantly and seamlessly set up my husband's fucking brilliant, okay? He has set up the back end of my business in a way that I look at my fellow entrepreneurs in my field and I have so much compassion for them, because I would be in the same boat if I didn't have my husband. He has set up my insurance. He has set up my bookkeeping. He has set up my legal counsel. He's also a lawyer. He's investing my money. Like he has completely set me up to win on the back end, right? Which gives me freedom, and freedom is my core word, to be creative in the expression of the work I'm here to do. And so I think that the reason that works is because it's so clear. If there's a contract, Zach gets it. If there's a new marketing plan, it's on my desk. If there's a book to be written, it's on my desk. But if there's a book deal to be negotiated, it's on his desk. So we know whose role is what, and that is the most crucial in any partnership, whether you're in a marriage or in just two friends that have decided to start a company together. The most crucial thing is identifying the roles in the relationship and who's doing what, and making sure there is absolutely no crossover whatsoever in who is the leader of their party, right? Yeah. It's got to be clean. Two entrepreneurs in a business together and one's thriving and one's not, that can be very tricky. I think that I would be less likely to measure success based on how much you're earning or how much success the business is having, but instead measure your success based on how much fun you're having. And so if both parties are succeeding in the fun arena, then it will work. And maybe one party's carrying the financial weight a little bit more than the other, which is totally fine if that's just where the flow is coming in. But both parties have to be having fun. That's what's crucial.
That's right. Yeah. Fun and happiness should be number one, right?
It has to be. If it's not there, then what is it for?
Yeah. Beautiful, Gabby. Beautiful. So I remember earlier in the conversation, you were saying that you were holding events before you put your first book out.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of up and coming coaches, life coaches, trainers that are listening in right now. What would your advice be for those that are looking at starting events? Like, what is one of the biggest lessons you learned through setting up events?
Get event insurance. Even if you're doing 30, 40 person events, have event insurance. It's crucial. I think I functioned for 5 years hosting events with 400, 500 people. And one day I remember my father coming to see me speak, and there was in the back of the room, there was a curtain that fell and landed on somebody, and no one got hurt, but it was kind of a big stir in the room. And my father looked at me and goes, "You have event insurance, right?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Get your shit together." So just number one, that's just a very practical tool. Get event insurance. Joel, I'm excited to share with you. My husband's actually creating sort of a business 101 course, which is so awesome, kind of giving the tricks of the trade of what he's applied to my business. And so we'll give your listeners the links to that at some point, because it's going to be so the nuts and bolts of what type of insurance you need, how to get that insurance, his tools for negotiating, legal counsel, and some specific contracts and things. So in any case, that stuff I have guidance on, and I can be a resource for your people. But that's a big one, just technically. And then speaking publicly, I spoke publicly for 5 years before I was a paid speaker. I spoke from 2001 to 2005, nights and weekends, at universities, at women's organizations, at nonprofit organizations, and I was, just full in and so excited and moved by the opportunity to speak publicly that it just worked. It just worked. And, for me, being a motivational speaker is why I'm here. Joan of Arc has a quote that I often refer to, which is, I am not afraid, I was born to do this. And so there was a roar within me that was like, get that microphone, get on that stage and tell people what you know and what you believe in. And so that's what I've been doing for quite some time. If that's what you feel, if any of the listeners are feeling that roar, just do it. Just, stop waiting for your audience to come to you and just show up, go and speak for free. Go and I have graduates of my masterclass who went out and they did their first speaking engagement, and one person showed up and they gave just as much of a motivational talk as they would if it was 100 people. And those are the people that inspire me most, that you go and you serve wherever you can. And I definitely recommend doing it for free until you feel that you are deeply confident in how you're speaking.
I love that. Follow your roar, right? Make the roar louder than all the other noises in your head and just do it. I love it.
Yeah, this is definitely an area where you just got to do it. My favorite thing in the whole world to teach is public speaking. I'm gonna just say, like, I love it so much. In my level 1 and 2 masterclass, I teach this public speaking, but like mainly in this like deeper dive that I do, and it is my favorite thing to teach, because really the goal for me is to help people come to that place of their inner guidance and inner wisdom and speak from that place and tell stories from that place. And the key to being a great speaker is to be a great storyteller.
Yeah. And how would you advise people to be a great storyteller? Would it be like to sit down and just start journaling things, writing things out and getting clear on what your stories are?
Yeah, just like when I was saying with writing the book, like you need the outline. So what I do is I write a very, very, very specific outline. And I bullet it out. And then I go and I almost write it as if I was writing a blog. So I'll write out the entire talk, just like in my own sort of riff and extemporaneous, splurge onto the page. And then I will sit and I'll meditate on the talk, and I'll envision myself telling the talk where I'm hearing the words back to myself. And then I know it's in me. And I will often bring the outline onto the stage, but I will never look at it ever. And I just unleash it. So my goal is to be this untethered force. And I can only feel free in my experience of being untethered if I've done the groundwork. So I recommend people really creating a clear outline, find out the story, how does one story build upon the next, much like the book, right? Much like writing a book. And then within the outline, just riff, just get honest and authentic.
Yeah, I love that, because, when you go out there to the events and you see these speakers, you might go to another event and you see them speak again. It's the same story in the same order, the same outline. Nah, you got to mix things up. And I love that you improvise, you riff, you let it flow. So that's great. And how would you say that we could get to that place, to be able to get to a place of just letting it out without even worrying what people think?
How do we get to the place where we can let things out without worrying what people think? So the key to getting things out in the world without worrying what other people think is to have faith in your life cred, really have faith in your own experiences, and trust that your experiences have created authority for you. And, look, I've never been questioned, Joel. No one has ever said to me, do you have a psychology background, or what's your training? My training is like yoga teacher training, and like being a student of A Course in Miracles. And mainly my training is life. My training is life credit. I think I am, and I am a spiritual teacher because I am a spiritual student, and I show up for my faith every single day and strengthen my faith every single day. And continue to shine the crystal of being a spiritual student every single day. And I've got great life cred, and that is what I teach, So owning your life cred is what I would recommend.
I love this. That's such a great way to look at it. You know, it's funny actually. I was speaking to this marketing expert, and he was saying that it's funny that people put so much emphasis on having all these credentials, with like the certificates. He said, when you walk in to see your dentist, you don't go, wait a minute, I'm not letting you work on any of my teeth until I see your certificate hanging on that wall. Like no one goes up and reads those certificates, right?
Right, exactly. I think that there's something to be said, obviously, in certain fields when you're a doctor, you want to see the right credentials. A lawyer, you want to see the right credentials. In the case of being a personal growth teacher, I think that the credentials become your personal experiences. That and a spiritual teacher, that is something that becomes your personal experiences.
Yeah. You've come from a place where I feel like you've grown so much, just to hear your story of where you were before all of this. And I've had quite a few of my friends that have gone to your events and they've come out saying to me that you've absolutely helped them to, get away from their addictions, to be able to move on. What would your advice be for those that are maybe they've passed on from the addiction, but they're ashamed of having that addiction? They don't want to tell anybody about it. Like, what would your advice be there for those that are ashamed?
I think that shame comes with the recovery process. And I think that shame is also something that passes. And I would say to stay committed to your path no matter what. And on that path, trust and know that shame will lift as time passes on. And so I believe time heals all wounds when you are on a spiritual path.
Excellent. I love that. So Gabby, we're reaching the end of this interview. I have one last question for you. And the question is, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, what would that last 30 seconds sound like?
Oh, what a good question. My message would be shine bright, and in your light, you will wake up the world.
Wow, that didn't even need 30 seconds. I love it. Hey, Gabby, I hope you don't mind. I just wanted to, I never do this on the interviews, but I actually just wanted to get my fiance, Charlene, to jump on real quick. She's doing the Spirit Junkies Masterclass in New York with you guys in June. June.
Yes, I know. That's so awesome.
Yeah, so if I could get her just to jump on real quick and ask you a question, I think that would absolutely make her day because she's, she loves your work. All right, I'll just get her real quick. Thank you.
Hello, Gabby.
Hi.
Hi. Good. How are you?
I'm great. So good to talk to you.
You too. This is so unexpected. Joel's like, come ask Gabby your question.
First of all, I'm so excited that you're coming to the masterclass. It is going to be so fierce.
Oh, thank you. I can't wait. I just booked it on a whim and I'm just sorting out all my accommodation now and everything. And I'm just so excited.
It's so amazing. And a lot of Aussies are coming, so you guys should all travel together if you can.
Yeah, we've been, the Spirit Junkie Masterclass Facebook group's amazing.
It's the most amazing in the whole world. It's incredible.
I really love it.
I'm obsessed with this. It's so good. So good.
I love it. So, I just wanted to know, like, your advice for, people who have no idea where to begin. Like, I have so many things I want to do, and I just don't know where to start.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot to be said for choosing one thing and focusing intently on it. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I believe in multiple profit centers and I believe in having, different areas that you can rely on. But I think if you're in the period of just beginning and just launching and just growing, to boil it down and get specific. So I was saying to Joel earlier, I started off and I was a speaker. And I just wanted to speak and I just wanted to speak and I just wanted to speak. And then as a result of being a speaker, I became an author and I became a .com entrepreneur and I became, these other things stemmed from that core passion. And so I would, really say, what is the core passion that's driving you, and bring your energy and your intention and your focus to that and be specific. And, in that specific, and energy goes where your intention flows, right? So, put your intention towards something that is super thrilling and moving to you, and that's where your energy will be elevating and expanding that process. I would recommend that you don't decide necessarily what that specific area is. Come to the masterclass, be in the wonder of all that is, and come, don't decide anything, just come with an open heart and mind. And when you leave, a lot of the answers will be given to you.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. I can't wait to see you.
Yeah, you too. I'm really excited. Yay. And Joel said you're working on your new book at the moment, so that's awesome.
Yes. It's really fun to write. It's really coming out pretty easily, which has been awesome.
Oh, good. And how's it all going? Do you kind of just lock yourself away and just, get creative?
No, I'm the opposite. I just write all day long. I have it up in Google Drive, and I'll be working, and then I'll go and I'll write about 500 words, and then I'll go back to something else. I'm the queen of multitasking, which can be quite confusing to certain people, but that's how I work.
No, each to their own. That's awesome. Oh, cool. Well, Joel's hovering, so I'll get him back on the phone. But thank you so much for chatting, and I can't wait to meet you in a few weeks.
I'll see you soon. I can't wait to meet you.
Thanks,
Have
Gabby.
a wonderful day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Awesome, Gabby. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I love her. She's so awesome. I can't wait to meet her.
Yeah, she's got a lot of passionate energy. So, yeah. She's got
I can tell. So good.
Excellent.
So good.
Awesome. All right, Gabby. So, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Where can the fans and followers and those that are interested in what you're doing, where can they find you online?
So the best place to find me is on my blog, which is Gabby, GABBY.TV, GabbyB.TV. And I am also very active on Instagram at Gabby Bernstein, and Facebook and Twitter, and I'm always replying to people. So you can find me all over social media as well.
I love it. And what about your events? You got some more events coming up, right?
Yes, so I've got my masterclass, my level 1 masterclass, June 5th through 7th, and the details are at spiritjunkies.com, spiritjunkies.com.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Gabby. I appreciate you sharing the line with us today. All the best with your new book, and
awesome.
Looking forward to reading it and checking it out.
Thank you. Congratulations to you and all that you're doing. It's beautiful. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. That's sweet. Right, have a good day, Gabby.
All right. Bye.
Bye.